First and foremost, I just want to say I am not a financial expert, which is why we have financial experts coming and joining the show. It's okay if you aren't either. I think that we should take what's going on in the world very slow and very simple and pretend like all of you who are watching have lives and businesses and children and things to do where you don't understand what's going on. And that's totally fine because a lot of people are talking about these issues like they're experts and they are not. First and foremost, I want to introduce my guest, Lydia Moynihan, who's a financial correspondent at the New York Post and the New York Next columnist. You can find her on X at LJ Moynihan and Instagram, Moynihan underscore Lydia. Lydia, thank you so much for coming on. You have come on my show before to talk about all things related to the economy and things going on Wall Street. I'm first to say, like, this is a dense topic for me. I find it sort of overwhelming. I don't really understand what's going on. A lot of my friends don't understand what's going on. I want to read some tweets in a second, but I just want to give an outline again for people that maybe don't know. On April 2nd, a few days ago, President Trump coined the day Liberation Day, which was announced where he announced two new types of tariffs, a 10% universal tariff, as well as a reciprocal tariff for more than 60 countries. Trump insists that these tariffs will encourage U.S. consumers to buy more American-made goods and eventually lower prices for Americans. Since this announcement, the stock market has suffered its worst collapse since the COVID pandemic. The S&P 500 is down nearly 14% year to date, while the NASDAQ composite is down 19% year to date. Many different sectors of consumer goods are expected to show price increases, specifically produce, cell phones, prescription drugs, new clothes, car purchases, and maintenance. Now, Lydia, depending on which side of the aisle of the internet I am on, people think that Trump is playing 8D chess and that you've got to crash the economy to rebuild it. And then on the other side, being told by pretty big people, even by some like Bill Ackman, some like pretty famous financial people, that this is a disastrous move. Can you just take it really slow with me? What is a tariff? What did Trump do? And how are you feeling?
All very important questions. Look, I mean, I feel like before this year, really the only time we talked about tariffs was in economics class. So it's kind of a foreign
Yes.
concept. Basically, the idea is that if we want to import a good from China, we're going to put a tariff or a tax on that. So it's really just a tax on a foreign good. So it means that if you want to buy, some vanilla from Madagascar, let's say it costs $10 now. If you put a tariff on it, I can't do my mouth right now. If you put a 10% tariff on it right now, it's going to be, I think, $11. So it's a tax.
Mhm.
It does often get passed on to the consumer. Now, here's the issue. So tariffs can be used as a negotiating tool. And if you study economics, this is like the carve-out example that all of the free market economists say is good. Now, the examples they note are basically one, if you're retaliating against existing tariffs. So that's something that we've heard Trump say a lot is he wants fair trade. He wants, if the EU is taxing cars 10%, he wants a reciprocal tariff. So it's all fair. So that's what we've been hearing him say. And then we've also heard about the importance of national security. And of course, the issue is that during COVID, right, our supply chain is not here in the US. And so we relied on all of these foreign countries for really important goods. We have relied on China for PPE equipment. So there has been a recognition that we need to have some of these really important supply chains here in the US. We need to have some manufacturing, and at least if anything were to happen again, we would be able to essentially support ourselves, right? We need to be somewhat independent to an extent. So that's what we were hearing a lot from the Trump administration. And then last week, what was outlined was not really something that we were expecting. It was a lot more about imports and exports. And so if you looked at basically the chart that Donald Trump was showing, he listed what we would be taxing every nation, and then he listed what other nations were taxing us. But the issue is it wasn't just about basically equalizing the tariffs. He was creating a formula that was more about imports and exports, and it was not what the market was expecting. Basically, it was saying if a country is exporting more to us than we are buying, aka there's a trade deficit. So like Megan, you and I probably have a trade deficit with Amazon or Target or a lot of stores.
Yeah.
Spend more there and we give them our money. We have a trade deficit. We get a lot of exports from them. We don't import a lot of things to them. So basically what he unveiled last week was much more about trade deficits than it was about fair trade. So that really sent the market into a tailspin. And so it went, obviously, it was a disaster Thursday, got even worse Friday. And if you remember, this has been really interesting to watch as well, is because Donald Trump in the first term was super focused on the market. He used that as basically a shorthand for how the economy is doing. And then in the last few weeks and months, you've heard the Treasury Secretary, you've heard the president, everyone say that for the first time, he's actually comfortable with what he's called a detox period. So there's been a lot of uncertainty. It's been, what's happening? Is this going to be changed? Is this really just about negotiating? Today, it seems like the answer that we are hearing from the administration is that it is about leverage. It's about negotiating fair trade. And so the messaging we've been hearing literally even just like in the last couple minutes and hours is the Treasury Secretary saying, hey, we're negotiating a really great deal with Japan, or we're getting calls from 70 countries. So that is suggesting that maybe we will get the end goal of fair trade, right? And the last few days, we just haven't known. And the reason it's so chaotic is any of these companies, right? If you're talking about bringing manufacturing back to the US, that's a whole nother conversation, but that's a long-term thing. And so if you're a company and you want to invest in the US, you want to make sure that like, you're not going to look like an idiot in a few months or a few weeks if you start building a factory. And that's basically what we were saying is no company would want to invest when they don't know what the future holds. So that's kind of a big picture situation. I am glad that I'm here on Monday because the market, it dropped precipitously Thursday and Friday, and it ended the day flat. So that was actually good news. It didn't end the day higher, but again, it kind of suggested that maybe things are going to stabilize. Like maybe there is a path forward that could be good and that could be the outcome that everyone wants. But until now, there's just been
Lydia,
uncertainty.
sorry to interrupt you. First of all, thank you for that rundown. It's very obviously illuminating. I do want to show you a video as you were mentioning that the market ended up coming up further than we thought. I want to show number 7, a President Trump basically saying that we're going to have to go through a little bit of pain to get what we want.
Is there pain in the market? At some point, you're unwilling to tolerate this idea of a Trump put. Is there a threshold?
I think your question is so stupid. I think it's I don't want anything to go down. But sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. And we have such a horrible, we have been treated so badly by other countries because we had stupid leadership that allowed this to happen.
You know, Lydia, friends of mine are just confused. Like half of them are like, I trust Trump and I'm going to go with what Trump wants because, he's the art of the deal. And then their half of mine are like, I lost $75,000 in my 401k and what the hell's going on? When we're talking about like, sometimes he said, quote, sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. Sometimes you have to have like, some pain in order to get the other side.
Yeah.
I think the question is how much pain for how long? Is that a question you know the answer to?
No. No. And I think
Okay, sorry. Does anyone?
No one knows. And I think that's what's been confusing is everyone's saying something a little bit different, even within the administration. So it's not really clear. Is this all just like a giant game of chicken and a total head fake to get countries to come to the table and negotiate? That's like the best case scenario. And I'm sure, you chat with a lot of folks in the know. I mean, I've spoken with people who are close to Trump who say that's exactly what's happening. So that feels encouraging. Obviously, the market is telling a completely different story. And what the messaging is basically, yeah, we could experience pain. That's not a very encouraging or optimistic thing. And of course, again, what we were hearing for the last few months is fair trade, fair trade, fair trade. And what was unveiled last week was not fair trade. It was much more protectionist than I think what we'd been seeing. And I think I've been thinking about this a lot as well, because globalization has absolutely hurt a lot of Americans. And that is true, right? We've seen communities, especially in the Rust Belt, decimated because those jobs have been shipped overseas.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is that we can get a lot of things for really cheap, and our quality of life across the board has improved. And that's a difficult thing because we like having really cheap things whenever we want delivered to our doorstep, oftentimes in like 24 hours, but it's also caused a lot of pain. And so I think the question is, does Trump basically want to get rid of the good stuff, which is all of these cheap things we want whenever we want, with the hope of bringing back some of these jobs to the Rust Belt. And that's where we don't have clarity because, again, I can see the benefit of that to large swaths of people, although, again, it's unclear like if manufacturing jobs like that really even exist anymore. But that's tough to ask people to basically say, like, we're going to make things more expensive. And in the event that there is a tariff war, those costs would get passed along to the consumer. So some people seem okay with that if it's like the means to an end where the US is basically independent and everyone has a great job. Not everyone is okay with that. So it's really
Yeah. Yeah. And we were talking about just offline beforehand. I was tweeting, like, I've just been surprised to see so many people that I'm a capitalist. I'm for success. I don't have I mean, I have nuanced feelings, but as a generalization, I have no problem with Wall Street and bankers and people existing. Like, I'm a capitalist. Like, I'm not a Bernie Sanders person. I have been surprised by the amount of people I have seen who work in media who I know have big fat contracts or are married to extremely wealthy people or dating really wealthy people that have a lot more cushions than some of my friends in Arizona who, quite frankly, if an iPhone ends up costing $3,000 and their iPhone breaks, I guess I'm just not gonna be able to text my friend anymore because I know she can't afford a $3,000 iPhone. So what again, I'm trying to like sift through like what's realistic. Do you think that the American public is going to be willing to get to pay $3,000 for an iPhone and sift through amount of pain for like a nebulous amount of time? And then B, why is it like, to me this feels very Bernie Sanders language. I was telling my producer, like, liberals are the ones that are always like, you have to have pain because of climate change, you have to suffer. Like, Republicans are normally
Right.
like, America is the land of the plenty. We like this messaging is like melting my brain. I don't want anyone to suffer. And yes, maybe there's some long-term benefit, but I want to know how much suffering and like, this is a question again you may not know the answer to, but do you have any feelings or comments on that? Have you been confused at all? Like, you're a Wall
It,
Street girl, you're a
all of
finance
these
girl.
things I know are going back and forth and back and forth. And it's funny too to hear liberals who did seem like they had much more socialist messaging are now like trickle down economics. Like if somebody can't fly their
Yes.
jet, that's bad for poor people. And you're like, wait, what? Like, so
Yes. Yeah.
everyone is all over the place, which is funny and very interesting to see. Again, I think it's still this big question of like, is this, and again, you can read his book, The Art of the Deal, and he literally talks about like getting maximum leverage. And I'm like, well, this is clearly maximum leverage. So again, there's people close to him who think like this is all a game of chicken. A week from now, we are going to have all these amazing trade deals and it's going to be great. And then there's other people who were like, no, this is the sine qua non of Trump's agenda is to like bring manufacturing back. If that is the case, if that latter option is the case, markets are not going to be happy. And again, all of these things, we're talking about things that take decades to do. I mean, for a
Yeah.
company to, and like, you can't snap your fingers and have complete manufacturing. And the other thing too is, again, like, are people going to be willing to pay if you bring iPhone manufacturing back to the US? I think 3,000 is basically underestimating what costs. If you remember, there were years ago, I remember there was this legislation that basically, very reasonable, sought to end slave labor in supply chains. Like, that seems like something everyone can get behind. I need to fact check this. I don't think it passed though, because everyone was like,
Mhm.
yeah, ethically, we're really opposed to that. But no, we
I
don't want
remember this.
$1,000 more. So that's the reality.
Yeah.
It's sticky too. The other interesting thing is like if you think about the environment, all of this, all of the cheap stuff that we get from China is really bad for the environment. So it's funny that we're not
Hmm.
people from the climate world chiming in about the potential benefits of this. Um, but yeah, I don't think, and I remember my mom always talking about like when Jimmy Carter was president, and he told people
Yeah.
like put on a sweater, turn down your heat, and it's like that's that's not popular, right? And I think we want to, as you said, like the promise of America is it's a land of abundance. We want to have an abundance mindset. And this is certainly not that. So but there's
Yeah,
so
I
many
agree with
things
you.
going
What
on. I think it boils down to like, hopefully it's all for, yeah.
people fantasizing about the 70s has also been confusing me as well, because that was not a great time for our like, again, there's so much like misinformation and just, I think, like, bloviating going on both sides. Again, you're a financial expert, Lydia. for people that are nervous watching right now, for people that are like, I just can't pay more for groceries. Should I, buy a new car right now? Is it going to get a lot more expensive? Is there any like tips or advice you can give to anyone right now who is just nervous and confused?
So I will say, and I think frankly, we're all kind of in that boat. I will say the Trump administration points to the fact that hopefully we're going to get interest rates down. So that means when you borrow something, it will be cheaper.
Mhm.
And gas prices are coming down. I think the messaging, again, we don't know what's going to happen. My gut instinct is I think it is going to come back. Again, it was 2 bad days. We're already flat, and the messaging is very positive right now. So I don't think that anybody should sell right now. I think, unfortunately, we kind of just have to go along with what they're saying, which is wait and see what the outcome is and sit tight. But, bear in mind, like, it feels like the end of the world. We have lived through this before during COVID. And after Trump was elected, also, it was very uncertain. And it feels really painful, again, because we don't know what's going to happen. But I think the best advice is to sit tight. Um,
La-
yeah.
Last final question for you, Lydia. I know you have a lot of connections on Wall Street. Wall Street was super MAGA, super Trumpy, I think, because Republicans tend to be better for the economy historically. How are any of your sources feeling about this? Are they upset? Are they angry? Are they like, same thing, give Trump the time to do 3D chess or 9D chess, whatever people are saying?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a tweet that was like, fine, I'll put my pronouns back in my bio. Just let's fix the economy. So I think there are a lot of people who, yeah, are freaking out because Trump all along, that's been his North Star, is make sure that the markets are going up. So this feels like for them a very big change. I think you're seeing a mix. We saw like Bill Ackman, a lot of hedge fund managers over the weekend basically urging Trump, like, this isn't going to work out. Like, the idea of focusing on deficits is not actually going to benefit the economy because there are gains from trade. Again, it's like, also, there's a lot of things that America doesn't even have. Like, we only get coffee from Hawaii. We need to be able to get coffee from other countries too. It's just one very important example that's near and dear to my heart, and I know to your heart, Megan. But look,
No,
yeah,
the coffee thing was freaking me out. Like the coffee thing is not making me happy. Apparently, like America has no coffee and it's really going to be bad. I drink like a lot of coffee. I mean, like, what, like, I'm not
chocolate.
going to reveal how much, but I drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, happy hour. I also think I feel like it's very apt that this is called happy hour because I'm like, I think everyone kind of needs a drink at this point. Yeah. Anyway, no, but I think people do feel like very taken aback. This is they can't believe that this is the Donald Trump who, because I mean that's his whole calling card too, is he is all about the economy and building a great economy.
Yeah.
So I will say too, I mean, again, the market reacts like you have to look at the long term, like months, years. And the people we speak with as well just point to the fact that, look, we're going to get the tax cuts. This is one piece of it. There's going to be other things that we're doing to boost economic growth. But yeah, it's really
Yeah. I want those tax cuts.
shock about kind of
Yeah.
the shock and awe moment where people are really surprised to see that this is happening. And then there's people who are like, oh, my guy in DC tells me that, this is the end result is going to hopefully be fair trade. So people are all over the map, though, I will say.